It's absurd to think that if you're Joe Biden and you know your son is involved with it, that you're like, I'm going to withhold $1 billion until you investigate my son's company more. Everybody
So
knows
why?
that's BS. It's
Well,
garbage.
wait a minute.
Based
First of
on
all,
what?
What we were told was after Biden issued his quid pro quo. Remember, it's not me that called Zlochevsky, the guy who ran Burisma, which was a gas company, and employed Hunter Biden. I'm not the one who called him corrupt. That's the Obama State Department that called him corrupt. And Biden was the point man for dealing with that corruption. And we can see what happened was we were told repeatedly that the reason that this quid pro quo was offered, which has been admitted, $1 billion.
This is, I mean, I don't want to, this is just all not true. Like, so that's why I'm like, maybe we shouldn't go down this
What's
route,
not
Sitch.
true? What's not
None
true
of
about
this is true. Everything you're saying is untrue.
Okay, so let's go step by step. Did Joe Biden issue a quid pro quo to fire?
Everybody
Victor
in the
Shokin be
world
fired?
wanted Victor Shokin fired. The entire world. Ukraine wanted Victor Shokin.
So
The businessman that
wait,
got
wait.
assassinated wanted Victor Shokin fired because they shook him down and stole a bunch of product from his business.
So it is true that Biden, I don't remember when it was, if it was in December or was it in January, he went and he said that they should fire Shokin. I mean, that's true, obviously. Biden
Yes,
admitted to
it
that.
is.
The question, or what I don't believe, is that it was done at the behest of protecting Burisma. That is not an evidence that I've ever seen.
Okay, right. So what we were told, so this is what happens. Like, let's just go through this. Do you believe based on the public, because I think what you're citing is sort of this appeal to authority. It would be no different than saying everybody said Iraq had WMDs, so they must have. And to me, that's not an argument. It's not an argument.
Wait. It's not.
Everybody says the world is round too. They just so happen to be right.
Okay, it's not an appeal to authority, because an appeal to authority is sort of just saying like, oh, I have a blind trust in an authority giving a fact claim or something.
Right.
And so
exactly.
the question with, oh, why did Joe Biden fire or want them to fire Shokin, is you say, well, it was the conspiracy claim is, oh, it was to protect Burisma because, the son was working there and it was corruption, yada, yada, yada. But to say, well, wait a minute, it wasn't just Joe Biden that wanted to fire Shokin. It was the EU on the fire. The EU specifically wanted to fire Shokin because, again, this was, Ukraine was trying to join the EU deal. And part of that was the fight on fighting corruption. And the EU had been trying to do, the EU and England specifically, I forget the guy's name, were doing an investigation on Burisma and other companies in the Ukraine. And they were asking for files and they're asking for information. And those companies were obviously not, going to work with the EU or the UK on any of this. And so they went to Shokin, who was the, Attorney General or whatever. And they said, hey, can you force these companies to give us the data? And he basically said, fuck you, I'm not going to do that. So they're all pissed off at Shokin. And then Nuland, who had something to do with this, or she was even on, I don't remember, this U.S. anti-corruption unit in Ukraine, they all felt that he was super corrupt. And then you had, as I talked about, the local scandal where his lawyers were soliciting bribes from people and he was covering it up. So it's not an appeal to authority to say, oh, all these people wanted Shokin fired. It's just saying, look, there's all this reason for why people want Shokin fired that has nothing to do with trying to talk about a Burisma cover-up.
Again, a lot of these people had a stake in wanting the Ukraine to get into the Western sphere of influence. And so a lot of them were making large amounts of money and filtering money through Ukraine and things like that. And Victor Shokin was a prosecutor who was at least looking in to those crimes.
That's so not true.
It is true.
Victor Shokin.
You keep saying
Victor Shokin was convicted of shaking down businessmen for bribes. He literally hired his driver, who is like a muscle man, to shake people down.
Let's assume
he got fired for bribery. Look, they wanted Ukraine to clean up their act with corruption because we didn't want our businesses going in and investing a bunch of money in a country that investment was going to go to waste because it was corrupt. Look, I'm sure you admit that Ukraine has a problem with corruption, right? A lot of people on the right say Ukraine is as corrupt as Russia. We shouldn't be there. It's a mafia state. It's run by mob bosses. But now you're telling me Victor Shokin the guy who is one of these corrupt assholes that keeps shaking people down for money, oh, he's squeaky clean.
Okay, now, if you'll allow me to respond to you, right? Let's say that you're right. I haven't seen this evidence that you're talking about, but let's say that you're right, that he hired this driver that did shady things. Could it be that he did that and simultaneously was seeking to prosecute Zlochevsky, the person who owned Burisma? Is that a possibility?
Sure,
Okay.
because,
so when you say that,
do you realize Burisma received a bribe that was like, what was it, Sitch, like $10 million or $2 million in cash? Like Burisma was corrupt. Shokin was getting paid to look the other way. So obviously, there's tons of corruption going on. They wanted people fired so that they could deal with corruption.
So if you'll let me respond. So the central criticism. So put this in the perspective of, this is what we know. You tell me if I say something that you disagree with, right? I'll just try to outline the bare bones, right? Joe Biden was one of the point people to deal with Ukrainian corruption. True or not?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay. Joe Biden thought that Burisma and the person who owned it, Zlochevsky, was sort of corrupt pro-Russian that was kind of bilking money from that company and from the people of Ukraine.
Biden thought that?
Burisma is corrupt. Yeah, exactly.
And Biden thought that, and the U.S. State Department thought that, correct?
Yes.
Let's go with the next step. The United States government was primarily the funder of the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, which was basically their FBI, correct?
I haven't seen that, but I'll take your word for it. Sure.
Okay. And lastly, you said the reason for the quid pro quo is we don't want to give $1 billion to a country where this sort of corruption is possible, because maybe we send that money and then it could. Okay, so then let me ask you this. Given what we do know is Viktor Shokin got fired, right? And now the investigation into Burisma goes to the NABU, which is basically the ally of the United States. So then you expect they solved that corruption and they prosecuted Zlochevsky, correct?
Well, solving corruption, whether or not Viktor Shokin could be standing in the way of solving the corruption, but the next guy could. Well, yeah, Viktor Shokin is out, right? In corrupt countries, a new corrupt boss can take over. You can't just say just because we fired the.
Wouldn't you hold the $1 billion back then? Wouldn't you say, geez, we got rid of the last guy, so then we gave you $1 billion, but now it turns out the new. In fact, find me one. Well,
you don't know. You don't know on day one if the guy is corrupt or not. Obviously,
right? Yeah, I think it'd be a logistical issue, because then they'd have to say, well, they're gonna wait another year to send the money to see if this guy's corrupt.
Well, even still, don't you think that if it was true? Now, picture this, right? You're the Biden administration. Now, all of this is ignoring, while this was all going on, Biden and Obama and everyone in that State Department administration full well knew that John Kerry's son and Joe Biden's son was working for the very corrupt organization that they claimed to want an investigation.
Rob, it's very simple. Look, if I am a corrupt head of Burisma, I am going to attempt to get Hunter Biden on my board. So the president of the so I've got some leverage over the Americans who are trying to weed out the corruption. I'm getting rich off of corruption.
I totally
agree. I don't doubt that they got Hunter Biden on their board as a way to, throw the dogs off from the anti-corruption league that's out to, make us run a legitimate business. Yeah. But what does that have to do? What does that have to do with anything?
Let me finish. So your claim is that Joe Biden's quid pro quo had nothing to do about his son. And yet you're saying that implicitly we all understand that that's the exact sort of things that happen. That if you're a shady... Please, let me finish. That if you're a shady company, you're intentionally getting the vice president's son on your board of directors because you know that'll be a bargaining chip down the road. But then when it comes to the public acknowledgement of a quid pro quo, you're like, oh, it's impossible that bargaining chip paid off.
Rob, what was the quid pro quo for? What was it?
I just have seen no evidence of it actually materializing.
Firing Shokin, why?
They fired Shokin because he was investigating Burisma. That's what Shokin
No, because he wouldn't investigate Burisma.
Okay, interesting point. So your claim is that's exactly what I was trying to get to. And this is what the Obama and Biden administration said. They said, no. It had nothing to do with Biden's son being there. It was the exact opposite. Actually, Joe Biden wanted them to investigate Biden's son more, and that Shokin wasn't doing it.
No, Biden's son is not on the agenda. The agenda is investigating all businesses for corruption because they want to get corruption out of Ukraine.
It's absurd to think that if you're Joe Biden and you know your son is involved with it, that you're like, I'm going to withhold $1 billion until you investigate my son's company more. Everybody knows that's BS. It's
well, wait a minute.
Based on what?
It was Victoria Nuland and whatever the name of her team was. They were the one that came up with the idea that the U.S. policy should be to try to push to get Shokin fired. It wasn't Biden didn't come up with it himself. So unless she was doing it at the behest of like, well, let me do this thing that I think Joe Biden's going to like to protect his son. I mean, that seems a very strange case to me to make.
That's not.
And then on fact that the entire United States department or the entire United States as an apparatus is going to say we're going to withhold, foreign aid to Ukraine just because the vice president's son is on the board of this company.
Of course not.
It's
ridiculous.
It's not
to me
ridiculous.
to make sense.
So you've already made statements that are factually incorrect. At least you have, Adam. You said that he was not. Victor Shokin was not investigating, correct? That's what you said.
There was an investigation that stopped. He stopped investigating them, and I know a lot of right wingers claim, because that investigation was getting close to Biden, and the Americans wanted him to stop. It's far more likely that Burisma paid him to stop the investigation handsomely, and that's why it ended.
Can I share some sources here?
Sure.
Do you mind?
Yeah, of course. Please do.
So I don't know. I'm not a Zoom user, but here we have an article. This is from the official Ukrainian news agency. This is from April 2nd, 2016. Court seizes property of ex-minister Zlochevsky in Ukraine. The movable and immovable property of Foreign Minister of Ecology and Natural Resources of Ukraine, Mykola Zlochevsky in Ukraine, has been seized, according to the Prosecutor General's office. The PGO filed a petition to the court to arrest the property of the ex-minister. This was April 2nd, 2016. Not a week after this, Blue Star Strategies, which was the sort of PR firm for the legal team of Zlochevsky and Burisma, they reached out to the State Department and personally met with Obama's State Department, which I could provide all the links for this. After that meeting, it took less than 2 weeks for Joe Biden to be on a plane saying that they demanded the firing of this prosecutor. Now, you said that Shokin actually wasn't investigating him. Do you think that freezing the assets of the leader is a serious step in an investigation?
I'm not following what you're...
Okay. April 2nd, Victor Shokin, the guy who supposedly wasn't investigating Burisma, had his prosecutor office freeze the assets of Zlochevsky. Immediately, Zlochevsky's legal team writes to the Obama State Department and says, Hunter Biden works here. We'd like to have a meeting with you. Then they get a meeting with the Obama State Department. 2 weeks after that meeting, Joe Biden gets on an airplane and goes and personally issues a quid pro quo until Shokin gets fired. Shokin gets fired, and then all of a sudden, the NABU, which is the ally of the United States, that the United States has told who to and who not to prosecute previously, they mysteriously drop the investigation, unfreeze the assets. And this is the guy that Biden and Obama said was corrupt, and not one word since then saying, oh my God, we gave $1 billion to a country that allows corrupt Russian oligarchs off the hook. Not one time have they said it since then. It almost looks like, geez, they were more than happy with all of these politicians' kids making huge amounts of money there as the United States laundered money through there. They were really happy to see that investigation buried. And so we hear all these lies like, well, Victor Shokin wasn't prosecuting. Yes, he was.
You said this was April 2016 or 2015?
Yes, April 2nd, 2016.
Wasn't he? I thought he was already fired by then.
No.
Because I thought
Shokin was making plans in February 2016 to interview Hunter Biden. You could read his interview here. Burisma's American representatives lobbied the State Department in late February 2016 to help end the Oh, I'm sorry. You know what I did? You may be right about it. I read this wrong because...
Yeah, it was like a year before.
In Europe, the dates are backwards. So it says 4/2/2016, but that's actually 2/4.
They put the day before the month.
Yes. So this was from February 4th.
Okay, that was like very... Okay.
And so then you can see... So the timeline goes... And John Solomon did all of this reporting, where he links everything to it, right? So... we see that Shokin was making plans to interview Hunter Biden in February 2016. He put in a sworn deposition. Burisma's American representatives lobbied the State Department in late February 2016 to help end corruption allegations against the company. Hunter Biden's name was specifically put on the email that they sent to the State Department. Joe Biden boasted in a 2018 videotape that he forced Ukraine's president to fire Shokin in March of 2016. Shokin states in an interview that he was told to fire Biden because they were unhappy with his Burisma investigation because he wasn't shutting it down. The day Shokin's firing was announced in March 2016, Burisma's legal representative sought an immediate meeting with his temporary replacement to address the ongoing investigation. Burisma's legal representative secured that meeting on April 6, 2016, and told Ukrainian prosecutors that false information had been spread to justify Shokin's firing, according to the Ukrainian government memo. The representatives also offered to arrange remaining Ukrainian prosecutors to meet with U.S. state and justice officials. Burisma officials eventually settled the Ukraine investigations in late 2016, paying a multi-million-dollar fine.
Can you, can you send me that?
Yes.
Well, yeah, because I thought, and that's been a while since I looked at this, I thought that Biden, I could have swore he told them that he wanted them to fire Shokin twice. And the first time was in December 2015 or January of 2016. And so it sounds like he could have told them, like, hey, you should get rid of Shokin. And then Shokin's like, oh, Joe Biden's asking me to get fired. Well, I'm going to investigate his son. Like, it sounds like it could be very retaliatory. Because then there was the whole thing where in February, they asked for his resignation. I think Shokin gave it, but then he rescinded it. And there's like this whole thing in Ukraine about, whether he was really fired or not. And then it took another month or two to actually fire him.
I don't know. I don't know if he, I would be willing to look at that if Biden suggested this in December. Even if he didn't, it wasn't acted upon. You have to admit that the timeline is very suspect and the way things play out is very suspect. And I could go through the litany of reasons and explain it real quick if you want. But the fact
the way you lay out time, like obviously, yeah, if the U.S. is just like totally fine with Shokin and then all of a sudden, he freezes this one guy's assets, and suddenly the U.S. is like, oh, we got to get rid of this guy. Like, yeah, obviously that's super suspicious. Like, I would agree with that. I'm just saying I'm not sure that that's actually the timeline. I don't think the timeline actually worked out that way, but I'd have to look at it again.
I put the link in the chat. It's an archive link, so hopefully it works for you. But you'll have to let me know. It's in the Zoom chat there if that works for you or not. But it has all of the documents, the emails, and everything there. You can see everything. Everything's dated, right? And that's the exact timeline of what happened. And again, you have to ask yourself this. One, would it make sense that if your son was involved in corruption, and it's not just Joe Biden's son, you have to understand this would implicate the entire Obama administration. For the vice president and John Kerry, who was someone who was still a bigwig in the Democratic Party at the time, at least partially influential, for their kids and politicians' kids elsewhere to be involved in getting these kickbacks for a company that they were claiming was corrupt. That looks really bad for the Democratic Party going into an election in 2016.
I mean, it's totally insane. I've said multiple times, I know that having a politician having a son who's like a fuck up is kind of like a stereotype at this point. But to me, it's like totally insane that, Biden or anyone would not publicly, I don't know what kind of relationship he has with his son, but like, fuck, if I was vice president and my son is like fucking with my political career, I would have to publicly denounce him if he won't stop it. I mean, obviously this just looks so bad, but on the other hand, it's hard for me to imagine that for, the millions of dollars, a couple $1 million, right, that Hunter was getting for like whatever, even if the 10% to the big guy is him, that just seems like such a little amount of money for Biden to basically risk like his entire political career, risk the entire presidency of Barack Obama just for like basically chump change at this point.
Peanuts, yeah.
But it's not just peanuts, because think of it this way. Hunter Biden is one person. But one of the ways, if you wanted to kick back money to political, people that are on your side politically, would be to send money through the State Department to countries that need aid, and then that money to be kicked back through business interest in the European Union, in the United States, via politicians' kids, family members, businesses that they were involved in. And for that to be exposed, that's the real value of this, right? They couldn't risk that the same people that were telling us that Ukraine was corrupt in 2014, and so we're so happy that Poroshenko got installed and he's an ally of the United States, and so we had to send billions of dollars there. They can't risk the public finding out, wait a minute, you knew that these people were corrupt and your family were getting kickbacks from it and you knew it? They can't risk that. That would be a death sentence to them politically. So it's not just the money. It's once that money was flowing, once the game is on, it's on. And you have to do everything you can to cover that up, which is exactly what they did. And this sort of thing was happening at the World Bank with Christine Lagarde. It was happening in the European Union as well. And so when you hear, that's what's frustrating to me, when you hear people say, well, everyone said Shokin was corrupt. It could entirely be possible Shokin was corrupt. But let me ask you both this. Do you think the Democrats and the FBI, if the shoe's on the other foot and it turns out that it was Don Jr. that was receiving money from a company that the United States was calling corrupt oligarchs?
Well, wait, what was the first question?
Well, do you think
Go
if
ahead,
it was the
finish
shoe
it
was
up.
on the other foot and it was Trump's family?
What about
that was receiving
what
these
about
payments?
Donald? What about Don Jr.?
Wait,
You want to talk about corruption at the FBI? What standard should we hold them to?
wait, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. So is the question that if Donald Jr. was doing this, that the FBI would have acted differently?
I'm sure CNN would have buried the story.
I'm sure that if there was reversed, Don Jr. politically reversed, that this would have been a major talking point.
Trump would have been impeached 4 times.
Yeah, he would have
That's
been
right.
impeached again. Yeah,
Well,
of
you're
course.
joking,
Yeah,
but
I
it's
must agree with
absolutely
that.
true what they would have said, because you have to look. Trump got impeached for an alleged quid pro quo, correct?
Well, I would not say it was alleged. I'd say it's pretty proven true
Well,
that it was
it's not-
an attempted quid pro quo, but
You're saying your intent, even though he never officially said the words, you will do this or you won't get your money, that you
we
assume
sent
that's what he
Rudy.
meant.
Well, a lot of people testified that Rudy was making that far more clear when he sent over there. He was saying, no, you got to do this to get this money.
Right,
And that
that's what people at the
Zelensky was I'm trying to remember who it was. He was about to go on some CNN show. I don't remember if it was Wolf Blitzer
And make the announcement.
or Gupta or something. And he was about to make the announcement, and the CNN anchor testified. He didn't testify, but he said that he was going to talk about opening investigations into Burisma. And then as soon as Trump campaign dropped it because it got too hot, all of a sudden that interview ceases to happen. So
Again, I would say that it's alleged. We don't have it, but nonetheless, let's say that you do believe that it was an actual quid pro quo. Well, that's having to look into what other people said about it. From the actual transcript of the phone call, there was not a physical quid pro quo. With Biden, we have a quid pro quo. We absolutely have it. Now, the question is...
You keep saying that, but...
You don't think so?
Well, what is a... it's a quid pro quo if you believe the narrative that he was doing it to protect himself from some investigation of his son. At the same time, though, everybody wanted Shokin fired because he was corrupt. So is it a quid pro quo if the entire nation of Ukraine wants to get rid of this prosecutor because he's corrupt and he's shaking down the citizens?
You're conflating multiple things. It's not a question of it had to be that it was to help Hunter Biden if it was a quid pro quo.
Yes, it does. Otherwise, it's not a quid pro quo.
That's not true at all. That's not true at all. You could have
quid pro quo literally means you're doing me a favor for this.
Okay, so wait. We're arguing over the definition of quid pro quo, and I think this is the issue. Okay, generally, when someone says quid pro quo, it's meant to be
personal
you doing
gain.
something for a personal reason.
It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to.
I understand that. I technically it doesn't have to be. So if say Joe Biden says, hey, we're going to not give you this money unless you fire this guy because he is corrupt, and Joe Biden is 100% acting in truth and thinks that Shokin is 100% corrupt. I mean, technically, I guess that could still be a quid pro quo.
Yeah, but it's not.
But when you say
what
the
people-
term, it kind of implies something more nefarious.
Right. So
Trump was doing it for selfish reasons. Biden
there
was
you
not
go.
doing-
There you go. And that's
Biden was not doing it for selfish reasons.
Right, and
that's the
supposedly.
difference.
Here's the point that we wanted to get to, right? This is it. So it's still a quid pro quo. For example, your quid pro quo could be to benefit the United States as a whole.
Look,
Russia,
Rob,
Right.
the reason you're saying quid pro quo, though, is to do a little fancy song and dance about how, these are equal engagements that took place. One got Trump impeached. The other one didn't have any effect on Biden because he had the entire world behind him when he was advocating to get Shokin fired.
Again, you don't know. What I'm doing is laying the groundwork for exactly what happened. We said that the problem, for example, we don't have a problem if the president of the United States would look to like if Obama talked to his counterparts in the UK and in the UN and said, there are allegations of something happening with Trump. Have you heard anything? That doesn't rise to the level of corruption of if Obama said, I will give you money if you find proof of these allegations. We understand those are two different things, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's why the issue of quid pro quo is so important. We're not saying that you can't have the leader of our country talk to other leaders about possible corruption. We're saying it's a problem when they attach U.S. tax dollars to it and say, if you do this, then you get something in return. We allow that quid pro quo if we think that it's not for personal reasons. So if we think it's like, for example, if we would offer Russia a quid pro quo and say, we would give you $1 million loan if you agree to leave Ukraine. That's a quid pro quo, but we would say, well, that's legitimate for a president to do. So the question that I'm trying to get to is exactly what Adam said. Adam, with no evidence whatsoever, says, I know that Biden's intentions were noble, and I know that Trump's intentions were...
Look, I never said that. Stop.
That is what you
Look,
said.
I never said I knew any of these guys' intentions. Like,
yes, you did. You literally said Biden did it for good reasons, and Trump did it for some.
I said that the world wanted Shokin fired. I didn't claim to know Biden's intentions. I said that he had the entire world behind him when he did so. So the appearance is that he did it for all of these other people. The entire world was not behind Trump when Trump asked for the announcement of investigation of Burisma.
Let me ask you a question that seems unrelated, but will quickly become related. Did you favor the special prosecutor of Bob Mueller looking into Trump?
Sure. I think looking into things is fine, yeah.
What,
I mean, I don't know Bob Mueller like personally, but...
Right. But do you think one of the reasons for that was because Trump fired Comey?
I thought that's what set it off. I thought it was... Yeah.
But let me say, to Adam's point, though, Republicans and Democrats all wanted Comey fired. So why have an investigation? Clearly it was for good reasons.
Well, the difference was that both Republicans and Democrats were pissed off at Comey because he seemingly hurt both their campaigns.
Yep. So therefore, no need for a special investigator, right? Everyone wanted him gone.